and welcome to In the Frame, Exploring the DIA. I'm Graham Beal, your guide to the Detroit Institute of Arts. Today we're going to look at portraiture, and the DIA has thousands of portraits in its collection, covering many different civilizations and made with just about any kind of material that you could think of, from marble to bronze, from stone to clay. And portraits have played different roles in different societies. And if I had to define what a portrait was, I would say that it's a likeness of an individual with a particular goal in mind. The individual being painted, sometimes painting him or herself, wants to project a particular image. Most of the time, these images have been used for official purposes, and they tend to show people being rather grand, never smiling, sedate, often with great architecture around them to show how important they were. These are the official portraits. At the other end of the spectrum, we have individuals like Van Gogh, who painted himself over and over again. The only artist really to rival Rembrandt in the number of self-portraits that he made. And Van Gogh was showing the way that his moods changed. He was trying to project what he felt about the world. And so in this picture here, you see the face is slightly wonky. Most people's faces aren't perfectly symmetrical, and it's balanced by the hat. And he's looking at us rather guardedly, rather warily, as if he doesn't really trust what's going on in the world. But it's a very famous portrait. It's always being requested for exhibitions around the world. It was most recently seen in Paris a year or so ago, where it was the street banner that announced the exhibition throughout Paris. In fact, it's traveled so much that we're beginning to become a little worried about the condition, and we may be keeping it here for quite a while. And here we are at another self-portrait from the late 19th century. It's by James Abbott McNeill Whistler. It's very loosely painted, but it has a very different effect from the Van Gogh. Whistler was a leader of a movement called the aesthetic movement that tried to turn the whole of life into beauty. Beautiful things around you, everything had to be exquisitely done. It's said that Whistler once sent back a salmon because the color of the salmon clashed with the color of the plate. Here you see him standing looking at us, or maybe he's not looking at us. I can never make up my mind whether those eyes do actually look straight at us. He may be looking over our shoulder, and his head is tilted back a little bit to give greater silhouette to the hat. Here he's holding his brushes in one hand, and a number of people have been confused by the fact that this looks as if the arm comes down here, across here. It's his left hand apparently, his left arm apparently, and then suddenly the right hand appears. By making this particular pose and gesture, Whistler is telling the world that he thinks that he's as good an artist that ever existed, because in the National Gallery of London, where Whistler worked, there are two pictures that use this particular technique. An extraordinary 1640 portrait by Rembrandt, self-portrait by Rembrandt, and a portrait by Titian of a man with a huge blue sleeve. So what Whistler is doing here is claiming his place in the history of art as a truly great artist. He was important. He was very influential on both sides of the Atlantic. He was an American by birth, although all of his art was made in Europe. But he had a terrific impression. It's just that the art movement that he championed turned out not to have much lasting power, although it has come back very recently. But he has painted here these very loose strokes, as it's called arrangement in grey, and Whistler would insist that this isn't so much a self-portrait as it is a very, very careful composition based on his own likeness.